We're going to start with a little review of division. Determine the quotient using both the tabular method and synthetic division. So if I'm using the tabular method, I need to set up with my divisor on the right-hand side, so x minus 2, and my dividend on the diagonals. 3x squared plus 8x minus 4. Remember, you always start in the top left. This is 3x squared. So what times x gave me 3x squared? Should be 3x. Once you get a top piece, you multiply. 3x times negative 2 is a negative 6x. Now remember that this diagonal has to add to be 8x. So that means in the top right box, I should have a 14x. So what times x gave me 14x? Should be a positive 14. So I have 14 times negative 2, negative 28. I'm supposed to have a negative 4. So that means that there has to be some kind of remainder left over. Let's work with synthetic, and then we'll come back and talk about the remainder for tabular. So with synthetic, remember that you take your divisor, set it equal to 0 to get your 0. That number goes on the shelf. Your coefficients get lined up, and you bring down the first. Then you multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. Then we add. 8 plus 6 is 14. Then we multiply. 14 times 2, 28. Then we add. Negative 4 plus 28 is 24. Remember that this is my remainder. Constant, x to the first. So my answer is 3x plus 14 plus my remainder of 24 over my divisor of x minus 2. So let's go back over to the tabular method. If you're using the tabular method, in order to set up and find your remainder, you're going to do a negative 28 plus your remainder, and it should give us that output of negative 4. Add 28 to both sides. My remainder is 24. My answer is the same thing. The follow-up question says, is x minus 2 a factor of 3x squared plus 8x minus 4? And our answer should be, no, it is not a factor because there is a remainder. And then the next follow-up question says, given f of x equals 3x squared plus 8x minus 4, they want us to find f of 2. So remember, for function notation, when they put it like this, that's my x equals. So they want me to substitute anywhere I see an x with a 2. So I'm going to set it all up here first. And now I'm going to go to my calculator. Three times 2 squared. And then I had plus 8 times 2 minus 4. So I have 24. So f of 2 equals 24. Notice that's your remainder. And that's not a coincidence. That is going to help us with our factor and remainder theorem. Now, just a quick shortcut, if you didn't want to type this all into your home screen, you can go to your y equals. So I could go to y equals 3x squared plus 8x minus 4, and I could go to my xy table, and I could look for when x equals 2, what does y equal, which I'll show you right now. So I have 3x squared plus 8x, was it minus 2? Whoops. Minus 4. So let's go back. Minus 4. Go to my table. And at 2, right here, my remainder is 24. So that's another option for you as well. So let's go back and take a look at what our factor and remainder theorem actually say. We're going to set the divisor equal to 0, like we do in synthetic division. You're going to solve, and now you're going to substitute into that polynomial. And the answer, when we evaluate, is going to be our remainder. If you get 0, there's no remainder. The divisor is a factor. If the divisor is a factor, then your input is your 0 or your root. So just a little recap of vocabulary. For example, if I have x minus 4, this is the factor, but x equals 4 is my 0 or my root. So just be careful. Those are similar, but they're very different. So let's take a look at a multiple choice strategy. This is a multiple choice question where they want us to divide. I could sit here and do synthetic division. I could do tabular division, but it's going to save me time if I go straight to my factor and remainder theorem. You don't have to worry about mistakes. You don't have to worry about remembering the method. So I'm going to take my divisor of x plus 1, set it equal to 0, and I get x equals negative 1. I'm going to put this whole entire thing into my calculator, and I'm going to put it in the y equals part. You could, of course, put it in the home screen, substituting in a negative 1. But if you do that, you have to be super careful about your parentheses and the negatives. Instead, I'm going to type it in y equals, go to my table at negative 1. Whatever I get here is going to be my remainder. So let's go to our calculator, go to y equals. We have 8x to the 4th. Make sure you hit the right arrow to get outside of the exponent. Minus 20x to the 3rd. Hit the right arrow, not the down arrow, because now I got to scroll back through. Then I have minus 14x squared plus 8x plus 1. Minus 14x squared plus 8x plus 1. I'm looking at negative 1. At negative 1, my y value is 7. So that means that 7 is my remainder. Look at your answer choices. Here is your remainder of 7. So my answer is choice 2. Let's take a look at one more example. This is with a graph. The graph of the quadratic function f of x is shown below. What is the remainder when f of x is divided by x plus 2? So in this case, I can't divide because I don't have the actual equation. I could try to find the equation, but I'm just going to go right to my factor or remainder theorem. So I'm going to take my divisor of x plus 2, set it equal to 0. I get negative 2. If I were to have an equation, I would go to my calculator, I would go to the y equals, and then I would go to my table. When x is negative 2, whatever y is, that's my remainder. Instead of a table this time, I have a graph. So I'm going to go to -2 on my graph and find that point. That's the point -2, -6. So if it was in a table, it would look like this. So your y value is your remainder. So my answer should be choice 4. So that's how you use the factor and remainder theorem to help you in solving some division problems if they're multiple choice or if they're graphic. You can always use it as a check as well if you're asked to actually divide and find the quotient.